for 12 years. They bought it 12 years ago or 15 years ago, but 12 years is really the ballpark time period that we use in order to assist persons to get titles for their properties. So I want to talk to us this evening about the survey diagram. Firstly, as I said, if you bought the piece of land, okay, you bought it, or it was you bought it, or you inherited it, or somebody just gave you that little piece, you got it as a deed of gift, or you have just been living there a long, long time because your grandparents were there before you and then know you and etc. If that's how it has been, then I would want, if you want me to assist you in getting a title, then I would have to survey the property. You'd have to survey the property for me to assist you. And before I go any further, if you have any questions, please send them to 876-868-5109. Send a message to 876-868-5109 or 876-535-8186. 876-535-8186. Okay, or 876-868-5109. And please remember that if you want me to get a title for you, just send me a message to 876-387-3183. 876-387-3183 if you want me to get a title for you, and I will gladly assist you in getting a title. Just WhatsApp me the word title. That's all you have to do. You don't even have to say good evening. Just say title to 876-387-3183, and I will gladly assist you. Remember, you're listening to Called Gospel Radio. So you need me to get a title for you, and I want to talk to you about the survey diagram. When you're going to get the property surveyed, make sure that the person who is doing it for you is a commissioned land surveyor. And you can just Google, because if you just Google commissioned land surveyors or land surveyors in Jamaica, you'll get a listing of all the surveyors along with their names and along with their addresses and phone numbers. So don't let somebody just come and say, I'm a surveyor, because I've seen many instances where persons have paid people to survey the land. When they come into my office and I look at the list, there's no such name as a surveyor. So the persons a lot of times would have lost their money, because it's really a technical skill. It's not something that somebody just goes out there and draws the picture of your land. It's very technical, and they have to have very technical equipment as well, expensive equipment, so the surveyor must be commissioned. Search and make sure the person you're giving your money to has the ability and the authority to do that survey. And you have over 100 commissioned land surveyors in Jamaica. So when you get that surveyor to come in to survey the property now, and usually try to find the surveyor who works in your. They are very territorial to some extent. Surveyors will work all over the island, but you'll go into some communities and you'll hear that is Mr. X is the surveyor in this community, and that is good because you will have institutional knowledge of the community, and will know, sometimes who is the owner and has a lot of the history of the property. So sometimes it suits you to ask in the community, who is the person who usually surveys the property? And if it's quite a few of you, suppose it's a piece of family land and you want me to do adverse possession for you because the father died leaving 10 children and each of you have your little house on it, and I want to do 10 titles for you. If you can all come together and get the surveyor to come in at the same time, that would be good, because then it will be cheaper for all of you. Because when the surveyor has surveyed one boundary, that boundary might cover 2 lots because it's adjoining boundary. So it suits you to know who is the surveyor. Or you're abroad listening, you want to have your property surveyed, just go online, look at commissioned land survey and find a surveyor in your community. Suppose you're in Manchester, find one in Mandeville. It might not suit you to get one to come out of Kingston because they're going to charge you traveling costs. When you have engaged the surveyor might want to see some evidence that you own the property. But that might not be too much really. They might ask you for old tax papers, or maybe you got it on a will, maybe you have a receipt. And a lot of time they will just go on the instruction of your attorney, because sometimes clients will come and say, I asked a surveyor to survey the property, and he says I have nothing to show. And I will explain to the surveyor that I'm going to be doing a first registration or an adverse possession application. The person has good evidence to show. I'm satisfied that the person can make an application, and the surveyor will usually take my word for it. and will proceed to do the survey. The surveyor has to serve notice on the adjoining neighbors. So if you'd have to tell the surveyor, okay, my land is butting and bounding John Brown's land, Mary Peter's land, John Paul's land, etc. And the surveyor is going to give you notices to serve on these persons, and we'll give them about 2 weeks, because when the surveyor goes out, persons can object. Persons can say, oh no, this is family land, this was my grandfather's land, I'm not allowing you to survey. And usually they would touch the tape that the surveyor is using, but they don't use tape a lot these days. But if you tell the surveyor that you are objecting, the surveyor is supposed to stop the survey. Of course, a lot of persons just willy-nilly, without having any right, just go and stop surveys, and that will cost you because you have to pay the surveyor to visit the land. If the person objects to the survey, then you have to ask the surveyor will give you a notice of objection, and you can carry that to your lawyer, and the lawyer will have to go to court now for the court to give the order for the surveyor to continue the survey. So it might suit you sometimes to discuss it with the family and so on, and say that, I'm going to survey my piece. Why don't you survey your piece as well and get that done? And one thing we need to note is that land cannot be landlocked, which means that there must be access. There must be a way to get into the land. And it doesn't have to be a 40-foot road. It might just be a track. It might just be what we call a right of way or a reserved road. But because I've sold you a piece of land, don't mean that you must get 40 feet of road to drive a car. Sometimes it's just a foot track. There's nothing to say that it must be a drive-in road, and that's part of the challenge. So be careful how we buy land as well. We need to be careful how we buy land to ensure that we have proper access, because now everybody will want to be able to drive to their property. I mean, that's in 2025, you don't want to buy property that you can't drive onto. So please note that. Okay, someone is listening and has asked a question, and I'll pause to answer the question. Kindly remind me of what happens when all the executors have passed and the person who made the will died and did not make a new one. I want to remind persons that your will is something that you should update every now and then. If anybody in your will should die, the executor, the witness, the beneficiary, please update your will. If you have, suppose you have will, you had 2 houses and you will them and you sold one in the interim, update the will. Even if you have not updated the will, the will is still valid, because the we will only probate in relation to what you have at the time of death. But if the executors have died, that's not a serious problem. Sometimes the biggest problem you have is to find the death certificates for the executors. And remember that you can always go to RGD. So many times persons will come into my office and will say, even today it happened to me, I said to a person that I needed him to get me a death certificate for somebody who was mentioned in a matter I'm doing for them. And he's saying to me, oh, am I going to get it? The relative's not going to give me. And I usually like to ask a lot of questions, So I said to him, because I like to get persons well educated, I said to him, if you want your birth certificate, how would you get one and your mother not alive to give you? He said you'd go to RGD. So I told him that's exactly what he needs to do. Go to RGD, show them the document that he has with the gentleman's name, and RGD will do a search for him. And when the search is done, then you will pay to get a copies of the death certificates. And I want to encourage persons, if your relatives have died and you're applying for the death certificate, don't apply for 1. Apply for 3, because I am going to want 2 if I'm probating the estate, and it suits you to keep 1. And remember, it's just the first copy that is expensive. The extra copies are like for $500. The first copy might cost $2,000, or depending on how long you want to wait for it. But the extra copies are not many. And I say the same thing to you about your birth certificate. If you have a child who is just born, or a young child, and you are going to the RGD to apply for about 5 to 10, so that child will never have to apply again, because the extra copies are not expensive. Don't you have a baby just born and apply for 1. You're going to need it for school, you're going to need it for the bank, you're going to need it for the passport, etc. So apply for 5 or more. And I would say if your baby is just born, apply for 10. Because as I said, the first copy is expensive, but the extra copies are not expensive. Try to only go into RGD once and don't have to go back, because that place those offices, good thing is that you have offices all over the country now. It's not just the one at Twickenham Park. Even downtown Kingston, there's an RGD now. But it suits you not to have, it suits if you don't have to go in there, very often. You notice when you ask me a question, I answer so many because the aim is really to educate. So what happens if the executor has passed or the executors have passed? You're going to get their death certificates, and anybody in the will can make the application now. It's not going to be an application for probate because it's a little tricky, but only executors can get probate. So, but anybody who something was willed for in the will, any beneficiary, can now apply to the court with the will. And you're going to apply for something we call letters of administration with the will annexed. So it's like a hybrid kind of thing. So it's letters of administration, but estate is going to be shared according to the will. So any beneficiary in the will can apply. But you're going to need to get the death certificates for the executors. And if they die abroad, sometimes you are in trouble. But you can always get your lawyer to explain to the court that you are unable to get the death certificate for that executor, etc. And the court will accommodate the application. I hope the question has been helpful. My land title is with NHT. How do I go about to get my daughter's name on the title, and how much is the cost? She's my only child. Thank you so much for that question. The land title is with the NHT. NHT will lend a lawyer the title to add your daughter. So a lawyer will borrow the title from NHT and give NHT an undertaking to return it. To get your daughter's name on the title, we need your name, address, occupation, and TRN for you and your daughter. Name, address, occupation, and TRN. The cost is going to be dependent on where the property is. Because if it's in Kingston, certain parts of Kingston and St. Andrew, you're going to pay full transfer tax. Other parts, we can get a waiver of the transfer tax, which is 2%, and lawyers' fee based on value. So we'll need to know that. And you said she's your only child. Also, you need to know that if the child is in Jamaica, which is an important question I always ask my clients, because when clients come and say, I want to add my child, I don't just run and say, hey, I get a work now, I'm going to make some money. No. A lot of times I don't add the children when the parents ask me, because it's going to prevent them from getting their NHT benefit, because NHT is going to say they already own property. So that's something that I would want to discuss with you, because if you are adamant, if the child is contributing to NHT and you are saying that you still want to add the child, I tell you to sell the child a half of the property. Let the child use their NHT benefit to buy a portion of the property so you can get some money, because they are going to be giving up their NHT benefit and you are giving away a house free. Sell them a portion of the property so it will be in both of your names. If the child is abroad, then go ahead and add the child. Another thing I want you to note as well is that when parents want to add their children to title and they come to me, I encourage the parents to take a life interest. I don't know if the NHC will allow that, but that's what I encourage parents to do. So the title will say to you for life and after death to the child, which means that if you pass on, the child doesn't have to go through the trouble of doing a probate or administration or anything like that, because the child would be what we call the remainder man. So when you pass, all the child would have to do is get your death certificate, note your death, and the property would automatically go to the child. But when you have the life interest, you can sell the property without the child's permission. You can borrow money without the child's permission. So I encourage parents to take a life interest. And make sure you really know she's your only child, yes. Okay, so but make sure that you know that this is really what you want. Sometimes when parents come and after discussion, I will tell them make a will. But this is your only child, and you know that this is the child you want to get it. So you can go ahead and add the child. But look at the options I'm giving you. Let the child buy an interest in the property so you can get the child's NHC money and you get your 7 point odd million. She doesn't get a free house. It's sold to you, you're just selling her an interest, so it's in both of your names, and you can take the 7 point odd million and go on a work cruise, because she's going to be getting the house eventually anyway. So those are some of the things I want you to consider. As I said, the aim of this program is to educate and to inform. And you're listening to Cordell Gospel Radio, situated in Ocho Rios, located in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. And the station aims to impact lives positively. And I want to welcome all the listeners. I note from the listenership last week that many persons are listening from the UK, Canada, USA, I think I even saw persons from other parts of from Germany. I think I saw somebody last week listening from Germany, and I'm really, really glad to welcome you. Somebody, I noticed somebody was even listening from India, Barbuda, Antigua and Barbuda. Wow. Thank you so much for listening to this program. And we really want to continue to assist persons in getting the knowledge that they need. Remember, if you have a question, you may send it to 876-868-5109 or 876-535-8186 so that we can assist you. So the person who wants to add the child, any lawyer, any she will lend any lawyer your title in order to assist you. And remember, if you want me to get a title for you, you may just send me a text message to 876-387-3183. Just send me the word title. So I was looking at the survey diagram, and you may send me your questions where I will always stop to answer them. You may send me, yes, I was looking at the survey, at the question of the survey diagram. Yes, so the surveyor will serve notice on the neighbors, and after 2 weeks or so will come in now to survey the property. Sometimes you don't even know where the boundaries are, and the surveyor will assist because they know how to identify things. They know how to find the old stone wall. If you had an old diagram, they will use their instruments to find the pegs. They will also do their research before coming to see if there are any registered title nearby, so they can find the boundaries for your neighbors. And it suits you before the surveyor comes. If you can just cut out what you believe is the boundary, get it properly bushed, so the surveyor will be able to have quick, proper access, be able to look because they have their machines that they use, their equipment that they use, where they need to be able to look from one place to another to see where to put the pegs. And they would usually put in metal pegs made out of steel, or sometimes they put in concrete pegs. And we need to know that there sometimes we have a serious problem where neighbors are, especially when persons pass, neighbors move the pegs. Okay, and that is a serious problem where people go in and, okay, I want piece more land, so as soon as Mr. Brown died, the children don't know the boundaries, so I go and move the pegs. Please, please. Even the Bible speaks about that. Even the Bible speaks about that. It's a serious thing. Okay, about the Bible talks about us moving the landmarks. And I want to encourage persons, please do not do that. And even if you move them, when the surveyor comes in, the surveyor won't look and see where you have put the new one. The surveyor will use their instrument and know exactly where the peg was supposed to be. So it suits us to be fair. It suits us to know that, do the right thing. And also to the older persons who are listening, let the young people know where the pegs are. And I say this as well for churches. Let the younger members know where the pegs are. There's so much information sometimes that is lacking. I was saying we gave a mandate to a young man in our church the other day to take one of the older deacons who is in his 90 and let him go through the cemetery and tell him all the people are buried there so we can mark the graves. And that's another thing that I'm noticing. We are not marking the graves of many of our older relatives. So people don't know what is happening. We are losing our history. And as Black people, we lose our history a lot because we don't secure a lot of things. And I guess sometimes because life is hard, we move up and down. Sometimes the same squatting thing, a lot of time we don't have permanence. So that's a part of the trials. That's a part of it's a part of, as I said, our DNA. Because I was reading an article just this week where they said trauma can be a part of your DNA. And sometimes you wonder if that's one of the reasons why we have so much violence, because that journey in the Middle Passage from Africa to the Caribbean, you can imagine how traumatic that was for our ancestors. Can you imagine the trauma in the belly of a ship? People doing everything, defecating, urinating, vomiting, dying, rotting in the body of some, and you are next. God have mercy. Sometimes I wonder what those persons are going to say to God on that day of judgment. It will be better for Sodom and Gomorrah than for some of these persons who perpetuated such things against people. And sometimes they say we are to move on, but why? I mean, why should we? Lest we forget. Because I notice a lot of times persons will say to us as black people, forget slavery, but they never say to the Jews, forget the Holocaust. Because we don't say to the Jews, forget the slavery in Egypt that happened how many thousands and thousands of years ago. They celebrate Passover even today, but we are to forget slavery that was just the other day, where our grandparents, great grandparents were slaves, and even some of us grandparents, lest we forget. But all of that is a part of the trauma, a part of the land trials, which is why I encourage my listeners, make your will, sort out the properties. If you can give the property while your hands warm, which is what this client is asking, by adding the daughter, she's trying to give the property while her hands are warm and not wait until they are cold. Okay, and that is something that I really, really, really encourage my listeners. And so I want you to make the wills. You don't need a lawyer to make your will. So let me finish the surveying situation now. So after the surveyor has come, the surveyor will go into office and use whatever the measurements that the surveyor got. He'll use it to prepare a plan. We call it a project plan. And that plan will show the size of the land, the location. It will have some field notes to show, okay, that the surveyor would have got in terms of measurement and so on, things that we can read with our knowledge. You need their technical knowledge. It will show, as I said, the neighbors. It will show the road, the access, and it will show how near the land is or where the land terminates on a parochial road or a main road. All of that will be on the diagram. Then it has to go into the survey department for them to pre-check it and to give it an examination number, and then you will collect it from the surveyor, bring it to us, the lawyers, and we use it to ground your title, because it's going to come, a mirror image of that is going to come on your title. So that's what I want to tell you about survey diagrams. I might want to tell you a little more next week, God willing, but I want to thank you. I've never seen half an hour go so fast as on this program. I guess a lot of information is there to be had, but I want to encourage listeners to continue to listen. And the aim of the program, as I've said on other programs that I do, is to make everybody in the community a village lawyer. Knowledge is power. I want village lawyers where a person will say, I listened and that you're not doing it the right way. And that's what I want persons to be able to say. And there's something that somebody asked me this week that I plan to talk about on this, and I just say it quickly. When you make your will and somebody is witnessing, they're only witnessing your signature. They don't have any right to read your will. So don't let any JP or anybody tell you that they're not signing the will unless they read it. No, your will is private. They are witnessing the signature. Thank you so much, Call Gospel Radio family, for giving me the privilege to be on your program again this afternoon. You have been listening to Land Matters. My name is Gloria Brown. I have an office in Kingston in Halfway Tree and one in Ocho Rios in the Jamaica National Building. You may give me a call anytime in the daytime at 876-387-3183. God bless you, listeners, and have a good night.
Show us, please show us, show us how to care for our brother. Show us how to love our neighbor. Like a candle, shine your love to let our children know that we care. Oh Lord, please hear our cry. We need you now, Lord.
La Gloria Brown for Land Matters every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Jamaica time on Called Out Gospel Radio, COGR. Tune in and be informed whether it's matters of buying and selling, subdivision of land, writing and probing will and testament, acquiring or modifying land titles, and much more. That's Land Matters every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. right here on Called Out Gospel Radio. Don't miss
Visit
it.
Blessed Beauty Salon, 7 Bravo Street, St. Anne's Bay, St. Anne. Call them at 876-335-7427. The time by Blessed Beauty Salon is 2 minutes after 8.